We confidently map out detailed charts of the starry sky and orbital paths. Scientists take pride in having unraveled the mechanisms of stars' birth and inevitable death. It seems to us that we fully control and understand the reality around us. We believe that all matter around us obeys the understandable laws of physics. But this reassuring picture of the world suddenly developed a huge and irreparable crack. When astronomers attempted to literally weigh the universe, the data they obtained turned out to be completely insane. The numbers on the supercomputer screens did not match what the telescopes were seeing at all. At first, this discrepancy was attributed to a technical error or the inaccuracy of outdated instruments. Engineers spent months rechecking the equipment, but the alarming result remained unchanged. All the stars and planets visible to us make up only a tiny fraction of this world. It turned out that we are completely blind to almost all of existing reality. 96% of our universe is forever hidden in all-consuming darkness. These are not just distant, dark nebulae or long-cooled dead planets. This is something fundamentally different, completely beyond our usual earthly understanding. We are literally in an endless ocean, but we see only the foam on the waves. Our classical science has always relied on what can be measured by instruments. We are accustomed to studying the atoms that make up our bodies and planets. But these atoms, which we understand, constitute only 4% of reality. The rest of outer space is filled with something utterly invisible and terrifyingly powerful. And this unknown something is, right now, controlling the fate of entire galactic clusters. This is by no means a philosophical riddle or a complex mathematical academic paradox. This invisible mass literally keeps our galaxy from complete physical disintegration. If it did not exist, the stars of the Milky Way would have scattered long ago and irretrievably. We exist only thanks to this colossal gravitational force hidden from us. But we have absolutely no idea what this saving, invisible phantom is. The problem is that we cannot photograph it in any way. No modern ultra-sensitive instrument is capable of detecting this strange substance. It does not emit light, does not absorb it, and does not reflect it at all. It completely ignores the electromagnetic laws of our familiar visible and tangible world. We sense only its colossal mass and its terrifying, all-encompassing gravitational influence. The longer we study this cosmic anomaly, the more terrifying it becomes. It is by no means a void or a mere absence of the hot matter we are accustomed to. It is a highly active participant in cosmic processes, one that strictly dictates its own rules. We have always thought of ourselves as the main actors in the entire universe, but in reality, we are merely tiny specks of dust on the body of an invisible giant. The situation is rapidly expanding far beyond the scope of dark matter alone. An invisible force not only holds galaxies together, but also mercilessly tears apart space itself. This second, even more powerful anomaly is causing the universe to expand at an incredible rate. We have called it dark energy, but that name explains absolutely nothing. It is simply a convenient scientific label for our absolute and terrifying helplessness. These two enormous shadows completely dominate the night sky as we see it. They are engaged in a continuous and relentless struggle for the future of our entire universe. One force is desperately trying to pull matter together, while the other is coldly pushing it apart. And we are right at the epicenter of this invisible, titanic, destructive battle. It is high time to honestly admit that we do not understand our own home at all. According to everything we know, the cosmos should be a completely logical place. The physics of Newton and Einstein brilliantly describes the motion of massive planets around the sun. We have honed this knowledge over centuries by observing the motion of celestial bodies. Today we can predict solar eclipses hundreds of years in advance, with incredible mathematical precision. Our automated spacecraft successfully reached the farthest reaches of the solar system, confirming the accuracy of the formulas. All these great achievements gradually instilled in us a dangerous illusion of complete scientific omniscience. Scientists believed they had finally unraveled the main mysteries of the universe's structure. For a long time, the mechanics of the cosmos were envisioned as a gigantic and highly precise Swiss clock. Every cog in this vast mechanism moved along a precisely calibrated orbit. We gazed proudly at the night sky, absolutely certain of our understanding of its fundamental laws. Scientists reasonably assumed that distant galaxies function like the vast solar systems we are familiar with. At the very center lies an incredibly massive and bright luminous core. Billions of stars of all sizes revolve smoothly around this dazzling heart. According to the basic laws of physics, the farther a star is from the center, the slower its motion should be. This ironclad law of gravity seemed unshakable and always held true for all visible objects. Astronomers simply pointed their powerful telescopes at spiral galaxies to definitively confirm this elegant theory. In the mid-20th century, new sensitive instruments for measuring stellar velocities became available. Researchers began painstakingly collecting data on the rotation of our neighboring Andromeda galaxy. It was expected that at the very edges of the stellar disk, the star's velocity would gradually decrease. This would have been the most logical and straightforward confirmation of the laws of classical mechanics. But what they suddenly saw on their monitors completely shattered the established model of the universe. The outer edges of spiral galaxies were rotating at a completely impossible and terrifying speed. Instead of the expected decline, the velocity graphs showed a straight line at all distances from the center. The stars at the very periphery were hurtling through cold space so fast that they should have immediately broken free from their orbits. Their centrifugal force far exceeded the gravity of the entire visible luminous galactic core. According to all the laws of nature known to us, these fast-moving star clusters should have torn apart and scattered very quickly. However, the distant galaxies remained surprisingly stable and showed no signs of breaking apart. It looked exactly as if they were being held securely in place by some kind of gigantic invisible framework. Some incredibly heavy substance categorically prevented the stars from scattering into the cold cosmic void. It acted like super-strong cosmic glue, holding entire stellar metropolises together. Scientists calculated that this hidden mass must have been 5 times heavier than all visible matter, and yet it remained completely invisible to even our most sensitive optical and radio telescopes. Conventional instruments detect light, heat, or radiation, but here there was complete silence. The unknown substance neither emitted, absorbed, nor reflected any rays. It seemed to mock the researchers, making them doubt the accuracy of their own instruments. At first, we sincerely hoped for a simple explanation for this strange cosmic mystery. Scientists thought it was simply hidden, colossal clusters of cold gas that were difficult to detect. Bold hypotheses were put forward about the existence of a vast number of extinct stars or wandering orphan planets. Or perhaps these were dense swarms of dim brown dwarfs and wandering invisible black holes. Researchers desperately searched for any clue in space to salvage the familiar picture of the normal world. We spent many years meticulously scanning galaxies in search of hidden ordinary matter in any form. Special orbital observatories were launched to painstakingly search for thermal radiation from dim objects. But all these large-scale and incredibly expensive scientific searches yielded absolutely no tangible results. Scientists had to admit complete defeat in their attempts to find a conventional solution to the problem. It became abundantly clear that there is a catastrophic shortage of ordinary matter to generate the immense gravity we need. All known stars, planets, icy comets, and cosmic dust simply could not hold the galaxy together. We suddenly found ourselves faced with the undeniable fact of the existence of a completely new and unknown type of matter. It is right here and now, densely permeating every cubic centimeter of outer space. Physicists have named this invisible mass dark matter, though the word transparent would be much more fitting. This substance passes freely through our bodies every second without the slightest resistance. The most frightening thing is that we are completely devoid of any senses capable of consciously perceiving it. We cannot see this substance, touch it, or hear any sound from its movement. It exists parallel to our world, giving itself away in no way through the usual means. Even the most precise laboratory detectors on Earth have not yet been able to capture a single particle of this substance. This fundamental discovery completely changes the scale of our loneliness in the infinite and mysterious universe. We are no longer the central part or the pinnacle of creation in this boundless stellar ocean. Now we realize that humanity is merely a very rare anomaly against the backdrop of a vast dark monolith. The world we are accustomed to, made of ordinary protons and electrons, has turned out to be a strange and very rare exception. The true and rightful master of the cosmos is something mysterious that we cannot even touch. All the beauty of the starry sky that we see has turned out to be nothing more than light foam on the surface of a dark and deep ocean. This knowledge forces us to take a fresh look at everything we considered reality. Our place in the universe turned out to be much more modest than we've been accustomed to thinking for centuries. Our entire rich earthly history unfolded exclusively within the framework of familiar visible matter. But now we understand that our reality is only a tiny fraction of all that exists. The vast majority of the universe lives by its own laws, completely isolated from us. Just imagine for a moment that you are sitting in a brightly lit and very cozy room. You sincerely believe that you are here in absolute and complete safety and solitude. But suddenly, you clearly notice how heavy objects around you begin to shift slightly on their own. You clearly feel a cold, alien breath right next to you and sense a heavy pressure on the floor. You are by no means alone in this room. It's just that your silent neighbor is completely invisible and utterly intangible. This is precisely the terrifying sensation that perplexed astrophysicists around the world are currently experiencing. Every day, they observe the gravitational dance of an invisible and incredibly massive cosmic neighbor. This hidden, enormous mass strongly bends the light from distant galaxies, creating amazing optical illusions. It acts as a massive gravitational lens, revealing its colossal and commanding presence in the universe. We clearly see the bending of space itself, but we cannot see the lens that is causing it at all. This strange paradox has become a veritable nightmare for all of modern theoretical physics. Light bends around empty space, tracing bizarre glowing rings and arcs across the cosmos. We are forced to constantly include a massive and utterly incomprehensible variable in our equations. Without this invisible component, our formulas simply stop working and instantly fall apart. Our entire coherent picture of the universe now rests on a single, huge, and very frightening assumption. And we are desperately trying to find at least some reasonable, logical explanation for it. Scientists around the world rush to find an explanation for this frightening gravitational anomaly in the cosmos. A beautiful idea emerged that dark matter consists of exotic particles still unknown to us. Physicists have named them WIMPs, which stands for Weakly Interacting Massive Particles. In theory, they must be heavy enough to generate the massive gravitational force we need. At the same time, they must almost completely ignore our ordinary terrestrial matter, passing right through it. These hypothetical ghostly particles are passing through us right at this very moment. Billions of WIMPs are densely permeating your bodies, the walls of houses, and the planet Earth itself every second. They do not interact with our atoms at all and leave no visible destructive traces of their presence. To them, our massive, solid planet is as transparent as empty, clear glass is to light. We constantly live under a continuous rain of invisible and utterly intangible cosmic matter. To catch these elusive ghosts, scientists have resorted to incredible engineering feats and enormous expenses. We have begun building giant secret laboratories deep beneath the surface of our Earth in various countries. Researchers hide ultra-sensitive detectors in abandoned mines at a kilometer-deep, pitch-black depth. They hope that the massive thickness of solid rock will reliably shield the instruments from extraneous noise. Only there can one hope to detect the rarest chance collision of a WIMP with an ordinary atom of our world. There is no natural light in such mines, and the scientists' working conditions resemble scenes from science fiction movies. A thick layer of Earth acts as a filter that blocks cosmic radiation and other interfering disturbances. Without such protection, the sensitive instruments would constantly react to ordinary particles arriving from space. Scientists have created a zone of absolute silence there, where nothing should interfere with the most important experiment in history. In these depths, humanity is trying to establish a connection with the invisible part of our vast universe. At the heart of these complex detectors are massive tanks filled with ultra-pure, supercooled liquid xenon. This substance was not chosen by chance, as its heavy nuclei increase the chances of making that long-awaited contact. Physicists spend days on end staring intently at monitors, waiting for the slightest, tiniest flash of light inside the tank. If a ghostly particle does collide with a xenon nucleus, a microscopic explosion will occur. The detectors will capture this very faint signal and prove the existence of dark matter once and for all. Decades of hard work and truly colossal government budgets have been poured into this ambitious project. Thousands of engineers have labored to make these traps the most precise instruments on the planet. But our underground detectors stubbornly remain silent day after day, month after month, and year after year. We have created absolutely ideal conditions for capturing WIMPs and carefully accounted for all possible physical parameters of the particles. All instruments operate with stunning precision, completely eliminating any terrestrial background noise. Yet, not a single dark matter particle has ever fallen into the hands of the perplexed scientists. This perfect, deathly silence underground is beginning to seriously alarm the entire global scientific community. Perhaps our theory about massive particles was fundamentally flawed from the start and requires a complete overhaul. Then, desperate theorists proposed another, even stranger candidate for the role of cosmic phantom. This hypothetical particle was named the axion, and it is even smaller and significantly lighter than a WIMP. According to calculations, axions were supposed to be produced in vast quantities at the very heart of burning stars. Individually, they are incredibly light, but their total number in the cosmos must be alarmingly huge. And they, just as masterfully and completely without a trace, avoid any interaction with our physical world. To search for these light axions, engineers have created entirely different, incredibly powerful and complex devices. They have built special chambers with extremely powerful magnetic fields capable of altering the fundamental properties of matter. In theory, a very strong magnet should transform a flying invisible axion into a flash of visible light. Scientists created an artificial magnetic field thousands of times stronger than Earth's natural one. The researchers hoped to see a characteristic glow in their chambers that would be the key to solving the mystery. But even in these highly sophisticated electromagnetic traps, we again found only a frightening void. It is as if the universe is deliberately hiding its most important secrets from us. The third popular candidate is the so-called sterile neutrino, which is considered an absolute loner among particles. Ordinary neutrinos constantly fly through us in vast numbers, born in the sun's violent nuclear reactions. We have learned to detect them, though this was also an incredibly difficult task for science. But their sterile versions must be even more isolated from our familiar physical reality. They exist, as it were, in their own dimension of interactions, completely ignoring our laws of physics. The exhausting search for them has also led modern astrophysics into a very deep conceptual dead end. We often behave like a person who stubbornly searches for lost house keys only under a streetlight. We do this simply because it is brighter there and more convenient for us to conduct our search. We try to fit the unknown and frightening into the framework of our familiar earthly concepts and tools. But what if these mysterious entities do not obey the laws of our familiar material world at all? We should consider whether we even understand the structure of the reality around us correctly. Perhaps we are trying to catch a very complex radio wave using a simple children's butterfly net. Our current scientific tools may be too primitive to comprehend such a profound structure. We are looking for particles where they may not exist at all, or we are looking for them in the wrong ways. This is forcing scientists to re-examine the very foundations of physics, which have been considered unshakable for centuries. Every new failed experiment brings us closer to the moment when we will have to admit our mistake. We continue to believe in the existence of material particles simply out of old habit. But the deep silence of our underground laboratories speaks of something entirely different. With every new failure of the underground laboratories, existential anxiety in scientific circles is only growing rapidly. We are physically unable to find what makes up a quarter of the entire observable universe. And this vast, invisible quarter is right now firmly holding our galaxy in its grasp. It governs the movement of stars and determines the fate of entire star clusters. We are completely at the mercy of forces that categorically refuse to make any contact with us. All our attempts to reach this hidden reality end in complete failure, and we are utterly powerless to make them reveal themselves to our ultra-precise detectors. Scientists have begun to seriously doubt the very foundations of modern academic science. Physicists have raised the alarming question of the accuracy of our basic equations of cosmic gravity. Einstein's famous theory works brilliantly and flawlessly within our small solar system. It has allowed us to send humans to the moon and robots to distant Mars. But no one in the world can guarantee its absolute accuracy on the scale of vast galaxies. Perhaps, over gigantic interstellar distances, the laws of gravity radically and unpredictably alter their familiar properties. We are accustomed to thinking that the force of gravity always weakens uniformly throughout the universe. Our calculations work perfectly for planets orbiting the Sun. We see Mercury or Jupiter moving exactly along the trajectories predicted by mathematics. For a long time, this precision lulled us into complacency and led us to believe in the universality of these formulas. However, when we look at the distant edges of galaxies, these formulas suddenly fail. There, stars behave as if governed by some other, unknown mathematics. Their rotational speed remains high even at the very outer edges of the stellar disk. New and very bold hypotheses have emerged, openly challenging all of classical physics. Researchers have logically suggested that gravity over large distances weakens quite differently from what we are accustomed to thinking. Over vast cosmic distances, it can suddenly become much stronger than the usual calculated level. This would elegantly and very simply explain the abnormally rapid rotation of distant peripheral stars. We wouldn't need dark matter at all if we simply tweaked the old formulas a little. Scientists called this radical approach modified Newtonian dynamics. Proponents of this theory believed that dark matter was simply a figment of our imagination. They argued that we were looking for ghosts in a void instead of acknowledging an error in the textbooks. Why invent invisible particles when you can simply change one variable in the equation? These alternative physical theories sparked a veritable storm of heated debate within the global scientific community. They proposed abandoning once and for all the futile search for phantom particles in dark, deep underground laboratories. Discussions between supporters of the two camps often escalated into full-blown scientific wars. Instead of endless experiments, these people demanded that the modern foundations of astronomy be completely and irrevocably rewritten. Many respected scientists gladly seized upon this lifeline of familiar human logic. It is always psychologically much easier for us to correct a small mathematical error on paper. It is much harder to admit our complete helplessness in the face of the vast and terrifying unknown. We are afraid to admit that the world is far more complex than our wildest imaginings. After all, if it's all about formulas, the world remains a comprehensible and predictable place. We're simply refining the details of the old picture without altering the very foundation of our worldview. But even these radical attempts to save classical physics ultimately ended in a crushing failure. Modified gravity stumbled badly when confronted with actual observations of deep, cold space. Scientists began to notice oddities that could not be explained by a simple change in the force of gravity. Astronomers recorded massive collisions of enormous galaxy clusters far from our solar system. This event was named the Bullet Cluster, and it became the death knell for many new theories. There, the behavior of gigantic masses of matter did not fit at all into the new, revised formulas. When the two massive clusters collided, something utterly incredible and inexplicable occurred. It was as if a person's shadow had suddenly separated from its owner. Scientists observed that during the collision, the ordinary hot gas slowed down and remained at the center. But an invisible colossal mass passed freely through it and clearly separated from it. This proved that dark matter exists on its own, as a separate physical substance. This strange phenomenon could not be explained by simply adjusting the old mathematical equations of gravity. If gravity were simply stronger, it would always follow the visible gas. The specter of almighty dark matter once again stubbornly refused to vanish forever from our complex calculations. We were once again faced with the frightening fact of the existence of a fundamentally alien physical substance. The attempt to reduce the great cosmic mystery to a mere mathematical error failed with a resounding crash. The problem turned out to be much deeper, more complex, and more real than a simple inaccuracy in the calculations of ancient scientists. This directly implies that our modern, ultra-precise instruments are not deceiving us at all. Outer space is indeed densely filled with a gigantic amount of unknown dark matter. It strongly bends the light from distant stars, reliably holds galaxies together, and forms entire cosmic webs. And we remain completely blind to this colossal and ancient cosmic structure. Our vaunted scientific instruments have proven utterly powerless in the face of this global enigma. We stand on the threshold of the greatest crisis in the history of human thought. With every new failure of a theory, astrophysicists experience increasing professional despair. Every year, we spend billions of dollars on ambitious projects that yield only negative results. Theoretical physicists have filled kilometers of blackboards with the most complex equations, all of which are of no practical use to humanity. Nature stubbornly and categorically refuses to reveal its most central and important secret to us. Perhaps we simply haven't yet matured enough to comprehend such grand scales of reality. It seems to coldly mock our pitiful attempts to understand its basic, fundamental structure. Perhaps we initially set out on a completely false and utterly dead-end scientific path of inquiry. We stubbornly try to fit grand cosmic anomalies into our narrow human intellectual frameworks. We search for tiny particles only because all of our modern science is rigidly built on particles. But the ancient universe is under no obligation whatsoever to conform to our limited and sometimes naive expectations. It consistently operates according to its own rules, which may be fundamentally unknowable to us. We are very much like people desperately trying to measure the exact temperature of the air using an ordinary wooden ruler. Our basic methodological approach to this complex problem may be fundamentally flawed. The dark, invisible sector of the cosmos urgently demands the creation of a completely new and unconventional paradigm of thought. We need to stop thinking in old categories and open our minds to the impossible. And no one knows for sure right now whether our human brain is capable of such a grand conceptual revolution. We may remain forever trapped within the confines of our old and, in this case, utterly useless concepts. This intellectual, hopeless isolation frightens scientists no less than the physical isolation of space itself. We find ourselves locked not only in space, but also within the strict boundaries of our own minds. Our imagination falters in the face of the infinite darkness that permeates all existence. We can clearly see through our best telescopes that reality is broken, but we lack the tools to fix it. And with every passing decade, this conceptual chasm only widens and becomes far more terrifying to us. We gaze into the abyss, but it gives us no clues about its true nature. We desperately search for answers in the empty, cold void, having completely forgotten to ask the right questions. To better understand why scientists decided in the first place that there is something invisible in galaxies, I have prepared an interactive model for you. In it, you can clearly see the difference between how a galaxy should rotate according to classical laws and how it actually rotates. This simulator demonstrates the concept of the rotation curve. You can change the amount of dark matter in the virtual galaxy and observe how this affects the speed of stars at the edges. This is precisely the effect that astronomer Vera Rubin discovered back in the day, and which stumped the entire scientific community. When standard Earth physics finally reached a dead end, scientists turned to the most exotic ideas. What if elusive dark matter isn't even in our familiar three-dimensional world? A frightening and complex theory emerged about the existence of hidden extra dimensions of space itself. For millennia, we have been accustomed to living in a comfortable three-dimensional world where everything seems perfectly clear and logical. In our everyday reality, there are only length, width, and height, which are easy to measure. But our vast universe may have a much more complex and intricate geometric structure. To understand this idea, imagine a very simple and vivid example. Imagine a completely flat and thin sheet of paper on which two-dimensional creatures live. They can move freely only forward or backward, as well as right and left along their plane. They have absolutely no concept of the existence of volume, height, or real three-dimensional objects around them. Their entire life experience is strictly limited to this incredibly thin paper surface. If an ordinary ball were to fly quickly right above their flat sheet, they would see only an incomprehensible shadow. This distorted shadow would appear to them as a magical gravitational anomaly that grossly violates the laws of their physics. The flat scientists would begin to construct the most complex theories about this strange dark spot in their sky. They would try to study this phenomenon, not realizing that it is merely the projection of a huge object from above. It is quite possible that we ourselves are exactly the same kind of blind and limited beings. Only we are not confined to a sheet of paper, but inside our own three-dimensional spatial volume. Dark matter may be an absolutely real, massive object located in hidden higher dimensions. We physically cannot see it itself because our eyes are simply not adapted for this. Our brain evolved on Earth exclusively for survival in ordinary three-dimensional conditions. We perceive only its gigantic gravitational projection, which falls upon our limited world. This is precisely why this strange mass appears to us as an invisible, intangible, ghostly substance, and we naively try to capture this immaterial shadow with our expensive underground detectors. This provides a mathematically perfect explanation for why our precise instruments never find anything deep underground. It is physically impossible to catch a huge three-dimensional object flying high overhead with a simple, flat net. Similarly, it is impossible to detect a multidimensional structure using our earthly technologies. We stubbornly search for elementary particles where, by definition, they cannot exist. Our cozy world is simply too geometrically primitive for direct interaction with this mysterious substance. This theory of extra dimensions has become a true lifeline for mathematicians and theoretical physicists. It has finally allowed formulas to make sense without the need to invent non-existent elements. But to the average person, such conclusions sound like a death sentence for our desire to understand the world. We are doomed to forever observe from the sidelines only distorted echoes of some real physical processes. If this bold hypothesis is correct, then the scale of our loneliness is simply unimaginable to the human psyche. Our observable universe may be nothing more than an incredibly thin membrane in a gigantic multidimensional space. Physicists call this concept string theory or brain theory. In this scientific model, our universe is just a tiny layer within an infinite cosmic structure. And so-called dark matter is the direct influence of colossal objects from other neighboring worlds. These invisible objects are so unimaginably vast that their powerful gravity pierces right through all dimensions. Gravity possesses the unique ability to move freely between different layers of reality. Unbeknownst to ourselves, we live in the vicinity of true titans, about whom we know absolutely nothing. These hidden gigantic structures may control our galaxies for their own incomprehensible reasons. They form the very invisible framework upon which all the stars known to us are held. To them, we are merely a very faint and annoying quantum noise on the very farthest periphery of perception. They may never even suspect the existence of our little Earth or of all of humanity. Just as we are completely oblivious to the microscopic bacteria beneath our feet as we walk. Our earthly science, our global sufferings, and our great discoveries are absolutely insignificant to them. We are simply quietly parasitizing on the gravitational crumbs that happen to fall from their enormous invisible table. This realization completely destroys any hope of a full physical understanding of the vast cosmos. This implies that our fundamental physical constants may be inherently determined from outside. The speed of light, or the mass of an ordinary electron, may be strictly dictated by the rules of these very highest dimensions. We simply accept these numbers as given, without any understanding of their true source. Scientists often wonder why the laws of physics are so perfectly suited to the existence of biological life. The answer may lie in this multidimensional matrix, which tunes our reality like a complex mechanism. But we see only the result of the gear's work, completely oblivious to the engineer himself. Theorists are desperately trying to describe this hidden world using incredibly complex advanced mathematics. They create multi-layered equations that are absolutely impossible to translate into ordinary human language. In these bold new formulas, the universe has 10 or even 11 different dimensions. Most of them are tightly curled into microscopic rings, invisible even to the most powerful microscopes, but others may be truly gigantic, forming that very parallel invisible framework. And this rigorous mathematical beauty remains, for now, our only fragile bridge into the unknown. All earthly science is strictly built on observation and experimentation within our small, three-dimensional bubble. All our probes and orbital telescopes operate exclusively according to the rules of this limited space. But we will never in our lifetime be able to conduct a direct scientific experiment in the fourth or fifth dimension. Our biology and our best technologies are rigidly and permanently tied to our current basic reality. We are forever locked in our flat and extremely limited geometric prison without a single window, and we are not even able to feel the cold walls of this cell to try to escape from it. The realization of this total spatial blindness causes a genuine existential shock for many serious researchers. We were so sincerely proud of our telescopes, which are capable of peering to the very edge of the visible universe. We sent spacecraft to other planets and naively considered ourselves great conquerors of outer space. But suddenly, it turned out that we are looking only along a single, very narrow, and primitive plane of existence. And the most important and vast events always occur right above our heads in a spectrum inaccessible to us. And we can do absolutely nothing about it, despite all our immense human desire. We are accustomed to thinking of a possible invasion from space as alien ships from other planets. But the real cosmic danger may not come from another distant galaxy, but from a different direction in space. This hidden, complex structure of reality may harbor incredible and even fatal threats. Invisible, colossal objects could accidentally damage our fragile three-dimensional universe. They might simply brush against our reality in the course of their own endless motion. We would be unable to foresee this devastating impact or defend ourselves against it in any way. We simply have no instruments capable of sounding the alarm about an impending spatial catastrophe. To us, it would appear as the sudden and causeless collapse of all the familiar laws of physics. Our world could simply vanish without a trace into nothingness, like a sheet of paper accidentally torn by someone. The matter of our world will simply disintegrate instantly into its basic atoms under the pressure of monstrous multidimensional gravity. And the most terrifying thing about this scenario is that we will never know the true cause of our demise. We won't even have a fraction of a second to comprehend the full grandiose scale of what is happening. In this terrifying paradigm, all of humanity finds itself in the role of a completely blind and deaf hostage to the situation. We obediently and doom-bound follow an invisible force, no longer asking the universe any unnecessary questions. All that remains for us is to silently hope for the random mercy of these grand dimensions hidden from us. Our ultimate fate is decided in those realms we will never be able to glimpse. But mysterious dark matter is only a small part of our vast cosmic problem. Hidden in the deep, cold cosmos is something far more vast and incomprehensible to the mind. This invisible force is terrifyingly destructive in its most fundamental and ancient essence. Scientists have always been certain that our universe is continuously expanding in every possible direction. This grand process has been ongoing without pause since the Big Bang for nearly 14 billion years. Galaxies are hurtling apart in all directions due to the momentum of that very first push. Logic stubbornly suggested that over time this active process must gradually slow down. All matter in the universe possesses mutual attraction, which acts as a powerful invisible brake. The colossal gravity of all those billions of stars was bound to pull the fleeing galaxies back toward one another. Added to this global process was the weight of enormous clusters of hidden dark matter. Physicists sincerely expected to see a smooth and natural deceleration of the expansion of empty space. All classical mathematical models confidently predicted precisely this reassuring scenario of cosmic deceleration. It was supposed to look like the flight of a heavy stone thrown high into the air by a person. Earth's gravity eventually stops the stone, and the cosmos was supposed to behave exactly the same way. The expansion was supposed to lose its force, like a giant spring that had released all its energy. Some scientists even tentatively suggested that the universe would one day come to a complete stop and begin to contract back in on itself. This would inevitably lead to a new big crunch and a possible complete restart of the entire cosmos. To prove this elegant theory, researchers needed highly reliable cosmic beacons. We pointed powerful orbital telescopes at distant exploding supernovae of a particularly rare type. These unique bursts always have the same power, making them an ideal tool for measuring distances. Based on their apparent brightness, astronomers wanted to precisely measure this expansion rate and its expected deceleration. It was an entirely standard and routine experiment to definitively confirm the fundamental laws of nature. Scientists simply wanted to put a nice finishing touch on their complex, years-long calculations. No one expected that day that this routine test would forever shatter our understanding of reality. The data received from orbit revealed something utterly impossible for classical academic science. These precise figures fundamentally contradicted all human common sense and basic logic. The expansion of our universe was not merely failing to slow down under the influence of the colossal combined gravity of the stars. It was accelerating rapidly and completely uncontrollably with every passing second. We clearly saw that ancient galaxies were flying apart from one another faster and faster. It looked as if they were under the influence of some powerful and unknown anti-gravity. Something incredibly strong and violent was forcibly tearing apart the very fabric of space itself. This incredible discovery came as a real shock to the entire scientific community. For this brilliant observation, the researchers were immediately awarded the prestigious Nobel Prize in Physics. However, this prestigious award did not bring the scientists the long-awaited peace of mind. The discovery instantly caused a real panic among the world's leading astrophysicists and theorists. We suddenly discovered a force that far exceeds the gravity of all conceivable matter. This strange energy has no visible or even hypothetical source of radiation. It is completely devoid of any clear direction of movement or any physical nature that we can even begin to understand. It does not consist of familiar particles, does not emit waves, and does not interact directly with our sensors in any way. It simply exists coldly, absolutely everywhere, filling the boundless vacuum to its very edges. Every cubic millimeter of absolutely empty space is literally saturated with this terrifying force. We have named this mysterious substance dark energy, solely out of complete scientific helplessness. By the most conservative modern estimates, it accounts for a full 68% of all reality. Together with dark matter, they leave ordinary people with a paltry 5% of the entire visible universe. It is the absolute and all-powerful master of our vast observable cosmic realm. It dictates its harsh rules, completely ignoring the pitiful resistance of ordinary hot stars and solid planets. Dark energy acts as an ideal, tireless, and utterly merciless repulsive spring. And this cosmic spring, it seems, has no limit to its strength or fatigue reserve. The most terrifying aspect lies in its unusual behavior as our cold cosmos expands. Ordinary hot gas always loses its density and gradually cools as it expands. But the larger the universe becomes, the more dark energy mysteriously appears within it. Space is stretching, and this repulsive force is constantly generated directly from the void itself. The density of dark energy remains alarmingly constant, despite the colossal increase in the volume of the universe. This creates the terrifying effect of a massive avalanche sweeping away absolutely everything in its path. It is now physically impossible to stop or even slow down this monstrous cosmic chain reaction. Space is rapidly expanding from within, pulling massive galactic clusters apart in different directions. The gigantic distances between stellar islands are increasing at a rate that is simply beyond comprehension. This invisible force threatens to permanently sever absolutely all gravitational ties between star systems. Unlike dark matter, this strange energy never coalesces into dense, heavy clumps. It does not form protective clouds, filaments, or any other cosmic structures we can comprehend. Dark energy is incredibly uniformly and incredibly coldly distributed throughout the endless cosmic void. It fills to the brim the vast black voids between distant clusters of shining stars. In these enormous, lifeless voids, there is absolutely no matter to provide gravitational resistance. Where there are no massive galaxies, dark energy reigns absolutely unchallenged and with great force. It gathers incredible, crushing power, like a hurricane on the open ocean without shores. It is from there that the very main cosmic impulse originates, one that ceaselessly stretches our physical world apart. Some researchers make extremely grim predictions about how this great expansion of space will end. If dark energy continues to relentlessly gain strength, it will begin to tear apart not only the empty zones between galaxies. Over time, it will become significantly stronger than gravity within the ancient star clusters themselves. Our home Milky Way will first lose all of its beautiful outer spiral arms, and then it will inevitably disintegrate into billions of solitary, rapidly cooling, wandering stars. The stars will cease to hold together forever, and our galaxy will simply cease to exist. But the methodical, destructive work of this hidden force will not stop for a single second. In a few billion more years, dark energy is guaranteed to reach the planetary systems around the dying stars. It will mercilessly tear our frozen Earth away from the dead sun and send it into an endless free flight. Ordinary gravity will no longer be able to reliably protect the planets from this merciless cosmic current. Every celestial body will be left forever completely alone with the terrifying and rapidly expanding void. It is as if it is desperately trying to isolate every single star system within its own bubble. In the very finale of this massive cosmic apocalypse, dark energy will penetrate even the densest matter. It will easily tear complex molecules apart, then atoms, and finally even elementary atomic nuclei. All fundamental particles will be scattered in different directions over vast, insurmountable distances. The universe will turn into an endless and absolutely cold soup of particles, physically incapable of interacting with one another. This eerie state signifies the ultimate heat death of the cosmos, where nothing will ever happen again. Dark energy mercilessly stretches the void, widening the impenetrable chasm between worlds. It is very much like a global cosmic quarantine imposed by the harshest nature of the universe. It is as if higher powers have decided to permanently confine all civilizations to vast, isolated, solitary cells. If this accelerating process never stops, the future of the universe looks incredibly bleak. A very long, utterly empty, and unbearably cold end to all known stellar history awaits us. Galaxies will soon be flying away from one another at a simply fantastic and terrifying speed. This grandiose movement will significantly exceed the speed of light itself in a deep vacuum. Light from distant worlds will simply be physically unable to traverse this rapidly expanding space. Light will travel toward us for an infinitely long time, but the distance itself will increase much faster than its speed. This is very much like a person's desperate attempt to run to the horizon on an endlessly stretching treadmill. Because of this, our familiar starry night sky will eventually become completely empty and lifeless. It will inevitably turn into a terrifyingly black velvet canvas without a single faint twinkling speck. Our distant cosmic descendants will never see other galaxies through their super-powerful telescopes. They will quite sincerely and not without reason believe that our Milky Way is utterly alone in the void. For them, our own cooling galaxy will be the entirety of the universe existing in the darkness. Any visual or radio information about neighboring beautiful worlds will be forever and mercilessly erased. The expanding cold vacuum, like a giant sponge, will completely absorb the light of all other distant star systems. Dark energy will erect absolutely insurmountable and impenetrable walls around every single stellar island. Not even the most advanced spaceship of the future will be able to bridge these monstrous gaps in space. We will find ourselves forever in a state of total, hopeless, and final informational isolation. Future highly advanced civilizations will be cut off forever from the rest of the vast inhabited universe. They will quietly be born and slowly die in their small, isolated enclaves without the slightest hope of contact. And the most terrifying thing about all this is that we currently have absolutely no way to influence it. We are completely powerless in the face of such a grand and utterly soulless cosmic phenomenon. All we can do is passively watch as our amazing world rapidly falls apart. They are very slowly, but absolutely surely, destroying any possible connections between distant worlds. It is as if the universe has decided to set a cruel self-destruction timer that no one has the power to stop or hack. We always thought that the vast cosmos was stable and relatively safe for future grand voyages. For centuries, we boldly dreamed of distant intergalactic flights and warm, long-awaited encounters with our brothers in reason. Science fiction writers have penned hundreds of books about the great unification of all thinking civilizations into one gigantic cosmic network. But now we clearly see a completely different and extremely frightening picture of reality. A huge invisible hand is methodically and very cruelly tearing the map of the universe into small, isolated pieces. All our ambitious plans for the distant cosmic future are instantly called into serious question. Nature has finally decided to scatter us to the far corners of its endless and very dark room. Scientists around the world have pessimistically dubbed this scenario the Great Disruption, or the Great Freeze. Our coherent picture of the world is literally crumbling into tiny pieces right before our eyes. The more we learn about the universe, the deeper the abyss of our absolute ignorance becomes. Every new, expensive orbital telescope brings us far more complex mysteries than answers. Theoretical physicists have begun to realize with horror one very unpleasant scientific fact. The problem may not lie in the hypothetical particles we are searching for at all. Perhaps, from the very beginning, we have been looking for something completely different from what we should be looking for. And here we come face to face with the most disturbing thought of our time. This is a truly philosophically profound and even frightening concept for any thinking scientist. Perhaps the notorious dark matter and accelerating dark energy are not physical objects at all. We are accustomed to thinking in terms of things that can be touched or mathematically measured. But these cosmic anomalies may not be particles or gravitational fields, nor may they simply be an annoying error in our old mathematical formulas. Reality may turn out to be far more bizarre than even the wildest human imaginations. It might be something for which we simply don't have the right words. Our rich human vocabulary lacks terms to describe such phenomena. Our minds evolved to understand rocks, trees, and water on planet Earth. We learned to survive in the savannas and build simple, reliable shelters from torrential rain. Our brains were not originally designed to handle incomprehensible multidimensional spaces. We are desperately trying to describe the complex cosmos using the primitive language of higher primates. Our brains are physically incapable of correctly imagining certain extraterrestrial phenomena. We cannot conceive of what lies so far beyond the bounds of ordinary matter. And this stark mismatch between a feeble tool and a global task gives rise to colossal errors. We stubbornly search for unknown elementary particles in our vast underground laboratories. We do this simply because it is the only thing we know how to look for. All of our advanced science is built on breaking the whole into smaller pieces. We behave like a very naive child in a huge adult workshop. We try to drive an iron screw into place with an ordinary heavy wooden hammer. Our intellectual earthly tool is simply categorically unsuitable for this universal task. We are trapped in the old paradigm of the earthly material objects we are accustomed to. We understand only what can be weighed, measured, or at least made to collide with one another. But the universe operates on entirely different principles that defy our description. Perhaps this vast dark sector is not the familiar matter we understand. It is simply part of a far more complex reality that is completely alien to us. Unknown dimensions and wild energies may freely permeate our familiar world. We don't even suspect their existence until they affect the gravity of galaxies. What we see through our telescopes may be nothing more than a distorted shadow of real processes. And these processes unfold far beyond the limits of our limited human perception. It may be a shadow cast by the gigantic invisible mechanisms of the entire universe. Such grandiose structures may exist in entirely different spatial planes, inaccessible to us. And we vainly attempt to study this flat shadow with all our scientific might. We naively mistake a simple gravitational echo for a real, tangible material object. It is like trying to study a flying bird solely by the shadow of its wings. If this is indeed true, then modern science has come to a dangerous precipice. We have hit our absolute and insurmountable biological limit of understanding. No new ultra-precise particle detectors will ever help us again. The creation of incredibly powerful artificial intelligences will also be unable to solve this problem. Any machine operates according to the laws that a limited human mind has programmed into it. We are hopelessly trapped within our three-dimensional perception of the surrounding reality. We are very much like ordinary fish swimming in a cramped, round glass aquarium. This ornamental fish will never in its lifetime understand the inner workings of the entire apartment. It does not realize why the big people turn on the lights or open the windows. In exactly the same way, we may never comprehend the true structure of the universe. The invisible, dark part of the cosmos will forever remain nothing more than a magical mystery to us. This bitter realization deals a severe blow to our inflated scientific ego. It brings our human arrogance crashing down to a very cold reality. We were so sincerely and loudly proud of our successful conquest of the tiny atom. We rejoiced wildly at the grand space flights of astronauts to the lifeless surface of the moon. For a long time, it seemed to us that a unified theory of everything was already looming very close on the horizon. Scientists sincerely believed that they would soon be able to describe the entire world with a single short, elegant equation. But the invisible 96% of the universe laughs coldly at us from the void. It mercilessly shatters all our ambitious plans to soon unravel the mysteries of existence. These vast scales of emptiness very clearly reveal our true, humble place. We are only at the very beginning of an incredibly long journey of scientific discovery. We have suddenly found ourselves in a situation of complete mathematical and conceptual deadlock. Our best tools have ceased to yield meaningful or even remotely useful results. Data from orbital stations scream at us about the existence of enormous, unknown, destructive forces. These massive phenomena are occurring right now around our little blue planet. But our best physical theories instantly crumble to dust. This happens at the slightest attempt to logically reconcile the old rules with the new, unsettling facts. We stand alone and utterly bewildered before a gigantic, invisible wall of incomprehension. We have not the slightest idea of its nature or how to overcome it. This total uncertainty causes deep existential anxiety in many brilliant researchers. The primal fear of the dark has returned to us on an entirely new scientific level. Every new day of our complex search brings scientists nothing but disappointment. It eloquently confirms our absolute conceptual blindness in the face of the cosmos. We continue endlessly and very drearily to flip through blank white pages. We seek answers in our depleted vocabulary of modern academic physics. Where there should be a simple and clear explanation, there is only a vast black hole. It is a hole of absolute and total incomprehension of the basic laws of the surrounding nature. With every major scientific failure, this intellectual void becomes increasingly threatening. We are terrified to admit aloud one very unpleasant and difficult fact. Our universe is too complex for our limited earthly understanding of its processes. In desperate attempts to find answers, we come up with increasingly wild hypotheses. We build massive colliders in the hope of breaking matter down into even smaller pieces. But nature seems to be deliberately hiding the missing pieces of this colossal puzzle from us. Perhaps we simply haven't yet reached the level at which we're allowed to read this code. We're trying to hack the most complex operating system of the universe itself with our primitive methods. At the same time, we don't even know the basic alphabet of this mysterious programming language. Our profound ignorance has ceased to be merely an academic problem for scientists in white coats. It has turned into an oppressive sense of anxiety hanging over all of humanity. We have realized that our brilliant edifice of science is built on a hidden foundation. And this invisible foundation lives a life of its own, one that is completely beyond our control. All we can do is hope that it will not one day collapse, burying our illusions beneath it. The realization of this total blindness of ours completely and irrevocably changes our perception of reality. When you step outside, you clearly feel the hard gray asphalt beneath your feet. You see the bright, warm sun high in the sky and feel pleasant gusts of fresh wind on your face. All of this seems to you to be an incredibly solid, real, and absolutely unshakable material world. You rely on your senses and firmly believe in the authenticity of your surroundings. But now, you know for certain that this is merely a meager, temporary backdrop on the gigantic stage of the universe. Absolutely everything you love, hate, or fear consists solely of ordinary matter. Your loved ones, your warm and cozy homes, the entire long history of humanity, it all amounts to a paltry 4%. All the great empires of the past, the masterpieces of art, and the complex scientific instruments fit into this tiny fraction. We are merely random, insignificant specks of dust against the backdrop of the overwhelming and terrifying absolute of infinite dark emptiness. The remaining 96% of the universe remains completely alien and cold to us. Our familiar matter is merely a rare exception to the grand universal rule. This hidden, all-powerful dark sector completely controls the physical evolution of our entire reality. It forms vast galaxies and ruthlessly governs their inevitable future physical demise. Invisible mass pulls stars toward one another, forcing them to whirl in a complex gravitational dance. At the same time, dark energy works tirelessly to one day shatter this dance forever. Our fate lies entirely in the hands of these two opposing and invisible titans of the cosmos. We simply watch their epic battle, with no say in the matter. For too long, we have lived under the dangerous and naive illusion of complete control over the cosmos around us. People boldly made grandiose plans for the imminent exploration and colonization of Mars or the Moon. We seriously discussed long flights to distant, habitable star systems. Science fiction writers created beautiful worlds where humanity wisely rules the entire galaxy within our sight. In these bold dreams, our descendants conquer the stars and subjugate the very fabric of space itself. We naively and very selfishly considered ourselves the rightful heirs to this vast and rich physical space. But the true masters of the universe turned out to be entirely different, and they don't even notice us at a glance. Invisible dark matter and the terrifying dark energy. These are the true architects of the entire vast cosmos. It is they who created that very colossal structure of a gigantic web upon which all known galaxies hang. This invisible web cannot be touched or torn apart by even our most powerful earthly technologies. Dark threads pierce the void, binding star clusters into a single vast system. And we cannot even properly make out this majestic and terrifying pattern. We simply huddle in tiny glowing nodes of this grandiose and utterly dark cosmic web. Our billions of stars are merely pitiful sparks trapped in the dense gravitational traps of the invisible framework. We cannot intervene in this global cosmic process in any way, nor can we influence it even slightly. Humanity is a completely powerless and blind passenger aboard this enormous, uncontrollable spaceship. The captain's cabin is permanently locked from the inside, and we don't even know who or what is at the helm. All we can do is obediently fly wherever this dark express train takes us. We are often frightened by the prospect of encountering aggressive aliens with their destructive laser cannons. We fear a large-scale invasion or enslavement by another, more highly developed space civilization. We regularly send various signals into deep space, sincerely hoping to find intelligent and very kind neighbors. Scientists constantly listen to the radio waves, hoping to hear fellow sentient beings amid the cold noise of the stars. However, the real existential threat to our existence has no faces, no space fleets, and no aggressive, evil intentions. These are blind, soulless, and incredibly powerful physical processes of a truly terrifying cosmic scale. They could easily reduce us to dust, barely registering our brief biological existence on the planet. Nature feels neither hatred nor pity for us. It simply methodically goes about its work. The relentless expansion of space, driven by the almighty dark energy, is already changing our future world every second. This process knows no fatigue and takes no breaks for rest or sleep. It cannot be moved by prayers or bribed with all the gold in our world. With every passing millisecond, the cold, dark distances between galactic clusters become increasingly insurmountable. Our familiar three-dimensional space is literally bursting at the seams under the intense pressure of this invisible, colossal spring. The constant acceleration of repulsion is preparing for us the most terrifying finale of all possible outcomes. One day, this repulsive force may become so monstrously powerful that it will mercilessly tear the stars themselves to pieces. It will overcome the gravity that has held the blazing celestial bodies in their perfect spherical shape for billions of years. Planets will be instantly torn from their familiar orbits and sent on an endless, cold flight. And then it will inevitably reach the smaller planets, our biological bodies, and ordinary earthly atoms. Physicists officially call this terrifying hypothetical doomsday scenario the Big Rip. The growing dark energy may well overcome all the strong electromagnetic and nuclear bonds within matter that we know of. If this terrifying final event occurs, ordinary matter will simply disintegrate into elementary isolated particles. Molecules will cease to exist, and atoms will lose their electrons in a fraction of a second. Our entire material history will be erased from reality in the most brutal way. The vast universe will instantly transform into an endless cold soup of completely isolated quarks and electrons. No particle will ever again be able to encounter or interact with another particle in the void. Between them, new space will constantly be born at tremendous speed, and we will be completely unable to oppose this with anything from our most advanced technological arsenal. All our machines, protective bunkers, and space stations will simply crumble to dust along with us. This will be the absolute and irreversible end of any physical, structural form of life. This thought rightly evokes the deepest existential anxiety in every logically thinking, educated person. We have always sincerely hoped that the developed human mind and advanced science are capable of overcoming any natural barriers. We firmly believed that our brilliant distant descendants would surely find a way out of any complex cosmic situation. It seemed to us that intellect was the key to the immortality of our species on the scale of eternity. But how can one physically fight against that which dissolves space itself right around your home planet? In the face of such colossal cosmic forces, our vaunted intellect seems a completely useless and laughable tool. We are forced to bitterly acknowledge our absolute cosmic insignificance and the incredibly terrifying physical fragility of our bodies. All of our advanced modern physics is merely a narrow science concerning a rare minority on the scale of the universe. We stubbornly study tiny material exceptions to the general rules of the game of vast, dark space. We presumptuously try to pass off these crumbs of knowledge as the absolute truth about the entire universe. We still have a tremendous amount of work ahead of us to rethink our humble place in the world, and the true, harsh laws of nature are being written right now in a language we are completely unable to read. These tablets of the universe are hidden deep within dimensions to which we have no physical access whatsoever, and we are completely helpless hostages to these harsh and utterly incomprehensible, cruel laws of existence. Every action we take is strictly limited by invisible boundaries set by the forces of darkness and emptiness. We are like ants trying to comprehend the workings of a massive, humming nuclear reactor. We are only able to feel the heat it emits, without understanding the very essence of the complex processes. This vast and terrifying discovery forever robs us of the comforting illusion of our own immense importance. We are no longer the center of the entire universe, nor are we the crowning achievement of a long cosmic evolution. We are merely a random physical byproduct in a vast, seething cauldron of powerful, invisible dark energies. We will inevitably have to learn to live with this terrifying sense of constant, oppressive uncertainty. Our cosmic home has turned out to be a far more terrifying place than we could ever have imagined. The entire long history of our earthly astronomy is a painful process of gradually taking off our rose-colored glasses. At first, we found it very difficult to realize that Earth is by no means the center of the vast universe. Then we sadly realized that our sun is just an ordinary, dim star on the outskirts. Then we clearly saw that the Milky Way itself is lost among billions of other galaxies. Every new astronomical discovery made us feel increasingly lonely and small. But the sudden discovery of the dark sector dealt the most crushing and painful blow to our pride. It turned out that we are not just incredibly tiny, we are also fundamentally alien in this world. Our familiar glowing hot matter is some kind of very strange physical anomaly of the cosmos. The normal and stable state of the universe is absolute darkness and invisible, terrifying energetic forces. And we live in this harsh world only by some utterly absurd stroke of luck. Our most powerful optical telescopes continue to scan the empty, dark sky diligently every night. Scientists around the world have not lost hope of one day solving this most complex and terrifying mystery. They persistently build new detectors, hoping to catch the faint whisper of invisible, ghostly, massive particles. But the vast universe continues to coldly maintain its stubborn and majestic silence in response. We stand before a tightly closed door, behind which lies a truly terrifying hidden reality. Perhaps this dark matter is not a physical, material object for classical study at all. It is a very harsh reminder of the limits of our biological and limited intellectual perception. We are shown, very clearly and harshly, that the human mind is by no means a universal master key to everything. There are vast things that will forever remain far beyond the limits of our limited understanding. And we will simply have to come to terms with the existence of this eternal, oppressive, impenetrable shadow. We always thought we stood proudly on the threshold of the greatest and most fateful cosmic discoveries. We sincerely believed that the universe was simply a big, interesting book that we just needed to finish reading. But we suddenly realized with horror that we see only tiny footnotes on completely blank pages. The main text itself is written in invisible ink that is physically impossible to reveal with any chemical. And this invisible yet all-powerful script is determining our entire future fate right now. What is securely hidden within these 96% could be absolutely anything. Perhaps invisible life is teeming there, consisting of entirely different forms of energy that we cannot comprehend. Or perhaps it is simply dead, utterly cold mechanics, indifferently grinding away at space and time. We find ourselves at the very heart of the greatest mystery, one that is vastly larger than our entire world. And this ancient mystery has absolutely no intention of revealing its harsh, true plans to us. With each new day of our rapidly expanding ignorance, anxiety in society only intensifies. We have absolutely no idea whether this invisible structure is protecting us or coldly preparing us for destruction. We are utterly blind in any predictions regarding the distant future of our solar system. All that remains for us is to passively and resignedly observe the destructive results of these invisible mechanisms at work, and to naively hope that they will not crush our planet in the near historical future. Our familiar reality has turned out to be frighteningly unstable, like a vanishing mirage in a scorching desert. We blindly rely on the laws of physics, which apply to a mere 4% of the world. All our advanced technologies and achievements are built on this incredibly meager foundation of knowledge. And beneath it lies a colossal and voracious abyss of unknown destructive forces and energies. We are building our beautiful sandcastles on the very edge of a gigantic and voracious black hole. Think about this terrifying fact the next time you look up at the starry night sky. The shining stars you see so clearly are by no means the main characters in this cosmic drama. They are merely pitiful specks of dust swept up by a gigantic hurricane of invisible and incredibly powerful dark forces. The true, vast universe is hidden precisely in that blackness that separates these bright, glowing points. It is there that the true, terrifying reality lies, one that is absolutely and forever beyond our control. For centuries, we thought we fully understood this world, but we were wrong about the most important thing. The universe is vast and full. It is filled to the brim with matter, yet we cannot see it at all. We are like blind, helpless passengers in the ocean, whose cold waters we can neither touch nor feel. If this gigantic hidden part of reality were to suddenly decide to change its rules, we would vanish instantly. And the scariest thing about this is that we wouldn't even have time to understand what exactly destroyed us